But ever since I received the message that this is the Gita moment, the actual time in which that which the Gita teaching and information is most relevant to. In other words, I consider the Bhagavad Gita what equivalent to what a tantric Buddhist would call a terma, at least a Tibetan Buddhist, which is a teaching in a way placed in a time capsule, and it can be found much later than it was originally conceived and discovered at a moment when it would be most useful to humanity. And so after meditating on the fact that this is the Gita moment, this consciousness, in a way, a trap door opened and this consciousness fell into free fall, passing through the text of the Bhagavad Gita, which I hadn't read in a long time, probably way too long. But what I recognized is that the Gita is specifically teachings designed to help sat yogis, in the generic sense of that term, at the end of Kali Yuga. And the story is not about some early Kali Yuga or Copper Age war. It's about this global conflict, but its focus is on the microcosm. The relevance of the Bhagavad Gita is that each one of us in our own fractal of reality is in an equivalent position of Arjuna at the beginning of the Gita story. Actually, that's not entirely true. It's the story of Arjuna and Krishna in the Mahabharata in a chapter before the Gita starts. And it's in that chapter that Krishna comes to the generals of the two sides of the battle that's about to be fought between the light and the dark, the Pandavas and the Kauravas. And Krishna says, I don't remember if he flipped a coin or whatever, but Arjuna got to have first choice that Krishna offered. He said, you can either have all of the high-tech weapons that my divine intelligence could provide, or you can have me on your side, and I'll drive your chariot, but I won't fight. I'm nonviolent, all right? And I won't be of any use to you in the battle except as someone who can offer teachings, right? Now, who wants teachings in the middle of a battle and can take them in? But in this kind of a battle, yes. Why? Let's understand this symbolically. Arjun represents your soul. All right, every soul that has made the choice to have Krishna in their chariot, not having chosen all of the high-tech advantages that modern society could offer. Not interested, even in, let's say, cell phones and computers and all of the digital apparatus and temptations and offerings, etc. But consciousness itself. So if you have made the choice that you want to expand your consciousness as much as possible at this time, to actually be able to have God consciousness as your chariot driver. In other words, if the chariot is the body, it means that you have agreed to be possessed by God, and that you've actually given God consciousness the reins to determine your destiny. You're now just a passenger in your own vehicle. You're no longer the driver. So this is the situation that Arjuna has put himself in, and that's already a very rare attainment. How many people would be willing not to be in the driver's seat of their own life, but to give it all to the will of God and have faith and complete trust without any desire for control? So Arjuna is that kind of a noble spiritual warrior who wants to have the infinite intelligence, even though what that will require is a radical surrender and trust. And it's in that state where Arjuna then becomes a real disciple of God, who becomes his Satguru in the sense of the source of the inner wisdom and willpower and capacity for accurate action in the world. And then he begins to give instructions. And so I feel it's my duty actually to read you the instructions that Krishna gives to Arjuna, because I believe that these are instructions specifically for yogis. Not for everyone. They won't appeal to those who don't want what God consciousness can offer and prefer what technology and the ego intellect can offer. But what he gives, and it's very different from what you find in the Ashtavakra Samhita, which is why I want to put that one on pause and go to this. That one is very paradoxical and begins already in non-duality. And so I think it's very difficult for an ego-identified consciousness to relate and make use of the Ashtavakra. But these teachings of the Gita are put in very dualistic form. They are directed to the individual person, not to the self that animates the person. And so I think that the teachings of the Gita are much more designed to take you step by step from what would be called by the Shaivites the Anava Mala, through the Karma Mala and the Maya Mala, all the way to being free of the ego identification. So I want to read a little bit from the beginning of those instructions, which start in chapter 2 at verse 11. There are many, many translations of the Gita, okay? I chose one to use tonight, not necessarily because it's the best or the most accurate. It's relatively so. although I find a few mistakes and a few dubious translations, or at least that I think could be improved. But what's good about this translation by Winthrop Sargent, by the way, in case anyone does want to get a copy, is that he includes the Sanskrit, so and with other English options. So it allows, let's say, meditation upon its meaning in a deeper level than a straight English translation might. I have found that so far every translation I've read makes certain mistakes, or at least what I consider to be inaccurate ways of expressing a point. But they all make different mistakes, and they get the mistakes that one makes, the other gets right. So you can compare different translations and come up with a madhyamaka, let's say. Okay, I'm going to start reading a few of these and see if they are helpful to you. The Blessed Lord spoke. You have mourned those that should not be mourned, and you speak words as if with wisdom, but the wise do not mourn for the dead or for the living. Okay? So that's your first instruction as a yogi. You are not to mourn. And I would say that would include not mourning for mistakes you've made in the past in your own life, or what you consider to be mistakes, or losses, or traumas, or choosing to climb the wrong mountain. Verse 12, truly there was never a time when I was not. So this is God consciousness speaking to you, saying, I, which is yourself, is eternal. There was never a time when I was not, nor you, nor any of these lords of men, and neither will there be a time when we shall cease to be from this time onward. Okay, so in other words, consciousness is eternal. So he's speaking to the soul, because obviously your body is not eternal, nor is your ego identity, but your soul, yes, when the soul knows itself. So, just as in the body, childhood, adulthood, and old age happen to an embodied being, so also he acquires after that another body. But the wise one is not deluded about this. In other words, the action of birth and death and rebirth is not really of any interest to the yogi, who is focused on the changeless consciousness that is unborn. Physical sensations truly that cause cold and heat, that cause pleasure and pain, they come and go. They are impermanent. So manage to endure them, Arjuna. Okay? Now, that's an important instruction. You've got to endure whatever life brings you. And you've got to be strong enough to do that. Well, easily said, but how? Well, that's what the instructions are going to explain. Indeed, the man whom these sensations do not afflict, the wise one to whom happiness and unhappiness are the same, is ready for immortality. Now that's quite an attainment. if happiness and unhappiness are the same for you, and the only way that that could be true is if you have discovered a higher kind of bliss that is not an impermanent state of situational happiness or the loss thereof, but is based on that which cannot be lost. Are you basing your life on that? Because that alone will give you the strength to endure.